Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a three-part revenge story over an evil coworker. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Enjoy my three-part revenge. Howdy. I'm a certified nurse's assistant. I take care of old folks that can't take care of themselves in the comfort of their own home. It's a great job and I love it. It has very low multi-person contact and a lot of downtime, and that means I can read to my little heart's content. Quick note, important detail for later, all the clocks in the house were set 7 minutes fast. Every one of them. Every morning at 6 a.m. I relieve the overnight caregiver and help a little old Czech lady. Sometimes I'm a couple minutes early, sometimes a couple late when I get there. It's never been an issue in the year that I've been helping this lady. Hell, my coworker does the same thing to me. One rainy morning, I get there 3 minutes late. It's South Texas and rain freaks everyone out. When I get in, the overnight caregiver is stomping around the house and slamming things on the counters. While clocking in, I ask what was wrong. "I'm effing pissed," she yells at me in front of our client and jabs her finger at the incorrect digital clock. "You're 10 minutes late and I'm effing pissed." I check my phone. No, I'm 3 minutes late. WTF. She storms out before I can get a word in edgewise, slamming the door behind her, and I'm honestly shocked. Wanting to keep ahead of this, I text my boss, letting her know exactly what happened and letting her know that I'm going to make it a point to get to work a couple minutes early from now on. I also set all the clocks to the correct time. Cue the petty revenge. 1. Every day I used to bring my coworker the phone after I clocked in. Not anymore. Now I put it right back on the charging cradle and she has to come get it. 2. I used to fill up the logbook with all the blank forms that we use to report our day with the client. Not anymore. I bring in exactly what I need for the day and no more. I'm not a monster though. I still take everyone's forms into the office when it's time. 3. Every time she leaves, as soon as she's out the door, I turn off the porch light so that she has to walk to the car in the dark. She always did remind me to turn off the light. Now I do it when she can see instead of waiting for her to leave. And our second story. My first job was a lesson in work to rule, a very obedient payback. I got hired on my first job when I was 17. It was something of a fast food coffee shop blend, and in my region, there are more of these chains than there are Starbucks chains. After a 10-minute interview and some paperwork, I was hired on. I'd later find out that minors were the preferred hires at this location since it was likely their first job, and they might in turn be unfamiliar with labor laws. My mother makes a decent income going to work sites and dealing with on-site injuries, labor rights, infractions, and so on. Her job is to make workplaces safer and spare them potential lawsuits. Through the stories she shared and the online handbook I devoured about labor rights in my region, I had a decent picture of how ethical workplaces operate. As it turns out, my new workplace was not so ethical. Your breaks were considered more of a privilege than a right, and you could be pulled out of your break to help up front at any time with no opportunity to make up that break time later. I earned a great deal of scorn from my manager by asking for a 30-minute break on my 7-hour shift instead of a 15-minute one here. You're legally entitled to 30 minutes for every 5 hours worked. There were so many weird corner-cutting things going on that could create a disaster scenario in terms of safety. Climbing on whatever is available instead of using the ladder was broken, poor food safety, and the occasional fire in the toaster oven, because new hires weren't instructed on how to use it safely. Not much instruction on how to use the corrosive cleaners, and if you had to clean the oven in the back kitchen, you were lucky if you received an unused mask or PPE that wasn't damaged. Burns, rashes, sprained ankles, and cuts were not uncommon. I badly burned my arm with hot coffee and immediately went to treat it, then asked for the right forms to fill out to report on my injury. I was scolded for leaving the front end, told there were no forms, and informed that no one reports on burns anyway. If we report every burn or slip and fall in a coffee shop, we'd never get through all the paperwork. The burn blistered with time and eventually required some prescription antibiotic cream from my physician. I was fed up, but intimidated at the thought of trying to formally report these people for safety and labor violations. Everyone else seemed to accept what was going on. I was trying to save money and move out, and in my head, the odds of getting hired elsewhere seemed slim. I decided to do something unconventional. I thought I was the first to come up with it at the time, but I would later find out that my plan was a classic workers' protest tactic. I was going to work to rule, follow every policy to the exact letter, which would inevitably slow things down and create obstacles to efficiency. It started with the cappuccino machine and the iced drink machine. The cappuccino machine is to be cleaned once daily, and the iced drink machine is to be changed weekly. They're both lengthy processes that leave the machines out of commission for a while. No one did it regularly, and we had an issue in the past where we got complaints about the taste of the iced drinks, only to pop the top off the machine and discover some kind of filmy, moldy growth on the surface. Seemed like a good place to start. I took great care to drain them and give the detachable parts a long soak and a thorough scrub. This angered customers who wanted their drinks right away. I'd been there for a while at this point and instructed anyone I trained not to hesitate to go get the manager if the customer has an issue they can't resolve. So it went that every shift involved me cleaning some machine and my manager placating impatient customers. We had this pre-prepared specialty tea that almost never got ordered, but nonetheless, it was policy to change the pot of tea every 30 minutes for freshness. No one did this. The tea would sit for hours. I decided this tea needed special assistance and made sure I was changing it regularly. The result was that we went through our stock faster than we ever had before. We frequently ran out, and the stock order had to be changed to accommodate a greater supply of the tea. I took care to check our freshness dates on the prepackaged foods. If it was expired, it was trash. This pained me as I don't like to waste food, but we had a strict policy on freshness of product. I tried to wiggle on this, only throwing it out if it was 3+ days over. Nonetheless, the result was empty display cases, low stock, and a need to, again, adjust stock to accommodate for the food supply needs that come into play when policy is actually being followed. I was assigned the sandwich and soup station, perhaps in an effort to keep me away from other things. However, it was wonderful new territory to work to rule. I changed gloves after every order as the handbook indicated we should. I took care to clean out all the receptacles before putting new toppings in them. The handbook indicated we were supposed to cool vats of soup and ice baths to bring them to a safe temperature before storing them in the fridge. I made sure it was done, which was inconvenient to management when they could have had me working on something else before the shift was over. I kept abiding by the rules rigidly and to their fullest extent. Management was incredibly pissed off and communicated as much when I wasn't around. However, I turned 18 by this point. I could now legally work past a certain time, supervise the teenage employees, and close the store. Until they hired on someone else who could work the hours I was working, it was something of a pickle for them. I also offered no hostility or indication I was being spiteful. If you were on the outside looking in, you might see me as an employee who did the jobs no one else wanted to do. It wouldn't have been easy to call me out to higher-ups. My coworkers, despite the inconveniences by proxy they probably had to put up with, didn't seem to mind. They were interested to see how it would play out and told me as much. I decided to quit after a conversation with the store owner herself. She indicated that she wasn't fond of kids who think they know how to run a business she's been running for years, and had some other choice words for me. I told her on the spot, "Oh, I understand completely. I'll submit my written notice for you tomorrow." My resignation letter wasn't just a resignation letter. The first few lines were as much. What followed was a list of safety infractions and labor law violations with dates and examples attached. It was incomplete since I only started recording these a few months in, yet it managed to be pretty extensive. I said something along the lines of, "I trust you'll address these problems in a timely manner." There was a quiet implication in some of my other language that the Better Business Bureau, Health Inspector, and associated safety organizations in my region would be happy to help them out. I gave 2 weeks' notice in the interest of my coworkers, who would have had to take extra shifts if I left abruptly. I was scheduled for 5 of the 14 days. They wanted me out, and they wanted me out as soon as they could get me out. I didn't return to this location for several months, even though I lived fairly close to it. I eventually got curious and went back to check things out. The place looked very different. You walked in and it just felt cleaner. The employees looked happier, though I didn't see any familiar faces. The location had come under new ownership and had been completely turned around. I have no idea if I played a role in the store changing hands or getting fixed up. I only know that for several months, I was a relentless pain in the butt for quietly, obediently following the rules, and I left a letter in my wake that created unease. Well done. Way to go. I applaud your tenacity and your methods. And our last story. Woman at my church wants free housing for her family of 5+. A few years back, this family from my church decided to do mission work and move to India. Fine idea and everything. The husband had been my youth leader for about 3 years at this point, and it was sad to see him go. The church held auctions to fundraise money to support them, like they do with every other mission trip. My dad is an auctioneer and a real estate broker, and he volunteered to do both auctions. They raised their money and had been gone for a few years. Last year's Easter, they came home for a visit and to introduce everyone to their new baby. Due to some political riots in India, they were unable to return to India for a while and decided to stay here until that subsided. Here's the wild part. Since they were only staying here temporarily, they didn't have a stable housing plan. What do? Ask my dad to rent them one of his houses. For free. Not only that, but they listed off a ton of requirements for the house. Large yard, 4 bedrooms, baby-proofed, close to the church, etc. Again, all for free. The part that really seemed strange was that they mentioned, along with their 3 children they already had, they were in the process of adopting twins from India. I don't know if you can afford to adopt 2 children from around the world, but not housing for your current 3 children? Maybe you should rethink your priorities. Obviously, my dad declined the inquiry, but did offer them a trailer in his trailer park to stay in. I can't imagine the total lack of self-awareness required to give a wish list for something free. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.